Valfaris had me reminiscing to my days as an angry teen listening to metal and headbanging my face off, popping in my CD into my CD player and having strange folks just stare at this crazy pimpled nut job. But does Valfaris deliver on some headbanging gameplay? Let's find out in this review. Now before I get started, if you guys end up liking this video, please consider hitting that like button and sub to the channel for more gameplay and game reviews. But when I first booted up Valfaris, just being on the dang opening menu screen screamed badass, and that is what you're getting here. A 2D side-scrolling action platformer heavily inspired by Contra and infused with heavy metal into every part of this game. Aesthetically, this is easily one of the most beautiful looking games, from the bosses to the enemies to the sci-fi hero himself wielding his sword and guns. The colorful pixel backgrounds just make this one of the most eye-pleasing games I've looked at all year, as well as one of the most beautiful hand-drawn pixel art I've ever seen, period. But as the story goes, you take on Theron, the renegade son of King Vrawl. Once a great ruler of Space Fortress Valfaris, the king has lost his mind and is now trying to destroy the world, but you decided to take things in your own hands by doing what's right. Now diving into the gameplay, this was just non-stop action. You have 3 different attacks, starting with your melee sword ability that you will be heavily using as enemies will charge at you constantly. Then you have your default pistol and basic gun that uses no resources, that helps you take out the baddies from mid to long range. Then you have your special devastator weapon that uses energy that refills by killing enemies. These devastating weapons are limited in use by that energy, and spamming it is not ideal, but a good way to get out of trouble. Then you have your shield to block incoming damage, or even use it as a reflect tool if you time the attacks just as you put up your shield. Now enemies can range from just a simple one shot to take them out, to the mini bosses, to the big badass bosses who are well designed. Now the little dudes are no pushover in this game, as you can easily get swarmed, and they also can proactively dodge your attacks. The game absolutely forces you to not only have good reflexes, but make sure you're using the right weapons for the right job. Making sure to fight certain enemies who move way too much with a melee instead of shooting can be key to success. But at the same time, there is a slight game design flaw here, as the game features this weird 8-way circle set aiming shooting mechanic versus just a normal 360 rotation. This is easily my biggest, mostly my main negative in this game, is the aiming and how it's not as precise as it needed to be. Now the bosses in this game are one of my favorite of the year, easily some of the most unique and varied design bosses I've seen this year and in general, as I am a sucker for huge epic boss fights, and this game doesn't disappoint in that aspect. You'll have bosses that test your ability to think on the fly, that challenge your sense of direction and button mashing, and just outthinking and learning the patterns is all going to be key. Really, there wasn't a fight here where I didn't die several times, and this was easily one of the best parts of the game. The level designs are also some of the best that I've ever seen in a 2D game, period. The action is always moving and varied, and I think the thing that stood out to me the most with Valfaris is how nothing at any point ever felt repetitive. One level you can just be going through the platforms, shooting dudes and insects. Next thing you know, you're riding a wave on a lava, to another level having you control a giant robot and causing mayhem. There is literally never a dull moment from level to level. Now progression isn't anything in depth here, but there is an awesome risk versus reward system here that has one of the more unique but fun mechanics I've seen when it comes to difficulty that I've seen to date. The game is littered with checkpoints everywhere, but to activate them you need to use a resurrection idol, and these are idols that you find throughout the levels. But the twist here is that if you decide not to activate a checkpoint, you can cash in on those resurrection idols you've been banking for blood shards that you use to upgrade the various weapons, as well as upgrading your health and energy. The game features at least 12 plus different weapons to find and upgrade. Usually these upgrades to your weapons are simple damage boost as well as some power up abilities, but this perfect balance lets you decide how risky you want to make your playthroughs go. If you're able to upgrade your weapons quite a bit, you get really powerful, but not just in damage but in health and energy, and checkpoints might not end up even needed as much, but you the player decide how much risk is worth versus repeating the stages if you die a lot. Overall, I don't think that I've played a game this year quite like Valfaris that had me screaming for joy in all my victories and screaming for pain in all my deaths. This is one of those games I'm personally never gonna forget, and I'm excited to see if this IP continues at all after this. The perfect blending of the metal music with the aesthetics and the gun sound effects make for an awesome game that had me enjoying every second of it. To note, the game also ran beautifully well and I never encountered any bugs whatsoever, so this is just a polished game all around. My only downside is the game isn't long enough at around 5 to 7 hours for your full playthrough, but they did mention they are patching in some new difficulties and hardcore modes, so watch out for that. My final score is a 9.25 out of 10, and this takes my spot for the top indie game of the year. Ironically, it beats out a game similar to this one in Extermination Force for my top indie game of the year. So pick up Valfaris and know that you're buying a top quality game. But that's going to be it for me, folks. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button and sub to the channel if you're brand new and you're looking for more gameplay and game reviews. And check me out on Twitch where I stream every Friday. But as always, I hope you all have a sunny day.